look at your neighbor and tell them, stop waiting. Now look back at me and hear this clearly. Nothing changes until I change. You can change your circle. You can change your city. You can change your prayers, your posts, and your plans. But if you don't change, nothing changes. Some of us are asking God to fix what we refuse to confront. We're begging for doors to open while standing in front of mirrors we won't face. You're tired because you keep fighting the same battle at a different address. You moved locations, but you didn't move your mindset. Hear me today. This is not a season of blaming, explaining, or complaining. This is the season of ownership. Because the moment you change how you think, how you speak, how you respond, and how you move, heaven responds to your transformation. Nothing changes until I change. Change starts with ownership, and ownership is the moment you stop asking who failed you and start asking what you allowed. It is the moment you realize that blaming people's systems, seasons, or circumstances may explain where you are, but it will never empower you to leave it. As long as responsibility lives outside of you, power does too. You cannot fix what you keep outsourcing. The truth is painful, but it is also liberating. Nobody has more influence over your life than you do. Ownership means standing in front of the mirror without flinching. It means admitting that some doors stayed closed, not because God said no, but because you never knocked with consistency. Some relationships fell apart not because people were evil, but because you avoided hard conversations. Some opportunities passed you by not because you weren't gifted, but because you weren't prepared. Ownership doesn't deny pain, injustice, or disappointment. It simply refuses to let them have the final word. There is a dangerous comfort in being the victim because victims are never required to change. If it's always someone else's fault, then it's never your responsibility to grow. But ownership shatters that illusion. It says, I may not be responsible for what happened to me, but I am responsible for what happens next. That mindset is where healing begins. That is where strength is reborn. That is where chains start breaking quietly before they fall loudly. When you take ownership, excuses lose their power. You stop saying, this is just how I am, and start asking, who do I need to become? You stop rehearsing the story of what went wrong and start rewriting the story of what's next. Ownership forces you to confront patterns you've protected for years, cycles you prayed about but never challenged, habits you justified instead of uprooting, attitudes you called personality when they were actually fear. Ownership is not self-condemnation, it is self-awareness. It doesn't beat you down, it wakes you up. It reminds you that if your choices helped build this reality, then your choices can also rebuild it. The same hands that made the mess can clean it up. The same mouth that spoke defeat can speak life. The same mind that learned limitation can be trained for expansion. The moment you own your part, you reclaim your authority. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop needing closure from people who moved on. You stop holding your future hostage to someone else's behavior. Ownership cuts the emotional cords that keep you tied to yesterday and hands you the keys to tomorrow. Change doesn't begin when circumstances shift. It begins when accountability rises. The world may not change for you, but something far more powerful happens. When you take ownership, you change for the world. And when you change, you stop surviving and start leading your own life forward. Your mind must change before your life does, because every outward condition is first an inward conclusion. Long before you arrived at where you are, you believed something that led you there. Thoughts shape choices, choices shape habits, and habits quietly build the life you wake up to every day. If the mind remains the same, the environment can change 100 times and still produce the same results. You can move to a new city, start a new relationship, or enter a new season, but an unchanged mind will recreate old struggles in brand new places. Many people are praying for a miracle while still thinking in limitations. They ask for overflow but expect shortage. They ask for favor but prepare for rejection. They speak faith out loud but whisper fear to themselves. The mind listens more to what you repeat in silence than what you declare in public. If your private thoughts contradict your public prayers, your life will follow your thoughts every time. Transformation does not begin with what you ask God to do for you. It begins with what you allow God to change in you. An unchanged mind keeps you trapped in cycles you swear you want to escape. You say you want more, but you think small. You say you're ready, but you doubt your own capacity. You say you've healed, but your reactions expose old wounds. The mind is a powerful architect. It will build walls where there should be doors and ceilings, where there should be sky. Until your thinking evolves, your future will always be limited by your past. Changing the mind is uncomfortable because it challenges familiar narratives. It confronts the voice that says you're not enough, that it's too late, that people like you don't win, that this is all life has to offer. Those thoughts may feel true because they've been repeated for years, but repetition does not make a lie a fact. A renewed mind learns to question thoughts instead of obeying them. It learns to pause, evaluate, and choose a higher perspective even when emotions argue otherwise. When the mind changes, behavior follows naturally. Discipline becomes possible because belief has shifted. Courage shows up because fear no longer has authority. You stop sabotaging opportunities because you no longer feel undeserving of them. A changed mind doesn't mean you never struggle. It means struggle no longer defines your identity. You begin to see challenges as instructions, not punishments, and delays as preparation, not denial. Life responds to the level of thinking you operate in. When your mind expands, your decisions sharpen. When your perspective lifts, your standards rise. You stop accepting what drains you and start aligning with what grows you. The same life that once felt heavy begins to feel navigable, not because the weight disappeared, but because your mental strength increased. Nothing in your life can sustainably change without a mental shift, because the mind is the gateway to everything else. When you change the way you think, you don't just alter your circumstances, you alter your trajectory. And once the mind changes, the life that follows has no choice but to transform. Comfort is the enemy of growth because it lulls you into believing that where you are is good enough, even when you were created for more. Comfort whispers peace while quietly stealing potential. It convinces you that avoiding risk is wisdom, that staying familiar is safety, and that postponing change is patience. But comfort does not stretch you, sharpen you, or prepare you for what's next. It only preserves what already exists, even when what exists is slowly suffocating your purpose. Growth always demands a disruption. It interrupts routines, challenges assumptions, and forces decisions you've been delaying. That's why growth often feels like pressure before it feels like progress. The discomfort you feel when stepping into new territory is not a sign that something is wrong. It is evidence that something is expanding. Muscles grow by resistance, not relaxation. Faith grows by movement, not stagnation. Destiny grows when comfort is confronted, not catered to. Comfort keeps you negotiating with your calling. You tell yourself you'll move when things feel safer, clearer, or easier. You wait for perfect timing, full confidence, and guaranteed outcomes, but comfort conditions you to require certainty before obedience, and growth rarely comes with guarantees. The longer you wait for comfort to approve your next step, the longer you remain parked in the same place with bigger dreams and smaller actions. There are places you've outgrown that still feel familiar. And familiarity can be dangerous when it replaces alignment. You can be comfortable and still be misplaced. You can be stable and still be stagnant. Comfort often disguises itself as peace, but peace produces life, while comfort merely avoids disturbance. One moves you forward, the other keeps you still. Breaking out of comfort exposes fear you've learned to manage instead of overcome. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of starting over. Comfort allows those fears to coexist without challenge. Growth demands confrontation. It forces you to choose between temporary discomfort and permanent regret. One hurts now but heals later. The other feels safe now but costs you later. When you step beyond comfort, you discover capacities you didn't know you had. Strength rises to meet demand. Wisdom sharpens under pressure. Confidence is not found in safety. It is forged in survival and success after uncertainty. Every time you choose growth over comfort, You train your spirit to trust itself in unfamiliar territory. Comfort will always invite you back. It will remind you of how easy things used to be, how predictable life felt, how little was required of you. But growth raises the standard. Once you've stretched, shrinking feels wrong. Once you've tasted progress, settling feels painful. Growth changes your appetite, and comfort can no longer satisfy it. You were not designed to live preserved. You were designed to live expanded. Comfort may feel like rest, but true rest comes from knowing you are moving in alignment with your purpose. When you stop protecting your comfort and start pursuing your growth, you step into the version of yourself that comfort could never produce. Your habits are voting for your future every single day, whether you are aware of it or not. Long before destiny shows up in a dramatic moment, it is quietly being shaped by the small, repeated decisions you make when no one is watching. The future you step into is not an accident. It is an accumulation. Every habit is a ballot, and every day you cast votes that either move you closer to who you are called to become or keep you anchored to who you have been. Most people overestimate the power of one big decision and underestimate the power of daily patterns. They wait for a breakthrough moment while ignoring the behavior that makes breakthrough sustainable. What you repeatedly do is what you repeatedly become. Your habits are forming your character, and your character is determining your direction. You don't drift into a better life. You practice your way into it. Some habits look harmless because they are familiar. Procrastination feels like rest. Distraction feels like relief. Neglect feels temporary. But habits do not ask permission before shaping outcomes. They quietly reinforce identity. When you repeatedly avoid discipline, you train yourself to tolerate delay. When you repeatedly choose convenience, you condition yourself to resist growth. Over time, those patterns stop feeling like choices and start feeling like who you are, even though they were never meant to define you. The power of habits is that they work even when motivation fades. Motivation is emotional and inconsistent. Habits are structural and persistent. That is why life often looks the way it does, not because of what you desire, but because of what you repeatedly do. Your goals may be inspiring, but your habits are honest. They reveal what you truly prioritize, not what you claim to want. Habits also compound. Small actions done consistently create results that seem sudden to others but were years in the making. Likewise, small neglects done daily can slowly erode progress until one day you wonder how things fell apart. Nothing collapses overnight. It decays gradually through tolerated behaviors. The same principle works in reverse. Small disciplines practiced faithfully build strength, clarity, and confidence that eventually change everything. When your habits align with your purpose, life begins to cooperate with your effort. You stop fighting yourself. Momentum replaces resistance. Progress feels natural because your daily actions are no longer contradicting your vision. This alignment doesn't remove struggle, but it gives struggle meaning. You understand that what you do today is connected to where you are going tomorrow. Your future is listening to your routines. It responds not to your intentions, but to your consistency. If your habits stay the same, your future will look familiar. If your habits change, your future has no choice but to shift. You don't need to overhaul your life in a moment. You need to be faithful in moments that seem small. Over time, those moments add up to a life that reflects growth, discipline, and intentionality. Every day, without fail, you are voting. You are casting ballots with your time, your focus, your energy, and your choices. And the future you will eventually live in is simply the final count of the habits you practiced along the way. Stop waiting for permission, because purpose does not respond to approval. It responds to obedience. Too many lives are paused, not because of lack of ability, but because of the need to be validated before moving. You're waiting for someone to notice you, endorse you, or affirm you while the assignment is waiting on your decision. Permission is often just fear dressed up as wisdom. It sounds responsible, but it keeps you dependent on voices that may never speak. Waiting for permission gives power to people who were never meant to control your direction. Their silence becomes your stop sign. Their doubt becomes your delay. Their opinions become your ceiling. But the truth is, everyone who ever did something significant did it before consensus formed around them. History does not celebrate those who waited to be agreed with. It remembers those who moved when they were misunderstood. There will always be a reason to wait. You can always find someone who isn't ready, who doesn't believe, who doesn't see what you see. If you require universal approval, you will live a very quiet life with very loud regrets. Vision is rarely clear to crowds in its early stages. If everyone could see it, it wouldn't require courage to pursue it. When you stop waiting for permission, you step into ownership of your calling. You accept that responsibility is heavier than approval, but also far more powerful. Approval makes you feel good temporarily. Responsibility makes you grow permanently. You realize that the voice you've been waiting for is often your own, and that hesitation has been costing you more than failure ever could. Fear disguises itself in logic. It tells you to wait until you're more confident, more prepared, more qualified. But confidence comes from movement, not stillness. Preparation is refined through action, not avoidance. Qualification is often revealed in the doing, not the delaying. You don't become ready and then move. You move and become ready along the way. Stopping the wait exposes a deeper truth. No one is coming to rescue your potential. People may support you, encourage you, even benefit from what you build, but the first step is yours alone. When you move without permission, you break the invisible chains of dependency that keep dreams small and timelines long. You stop living on hold and start living on purpose. There will be criticism when you move. There will be questions you can't answer yet. There will be moments when you wonder if you should have waited. But growth has never been comfortable, and obedience has never been convenient. What matters is that movement creates clarity. Each step forward reveals the next, while standing still reveals nothing. The moment you stop waiting for permission, something shifts inside you. Courage rises because you are no longer negotiating with fear. Momentum begins because action fuels belief. You stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, who will I become if I don't move? And once you answer that honestly, waiting is no longer an option. When you change, everything connected to you changes, because transformation is never isolated. Your life is not lived in a vacuum. It is woven into families, relationships, environments, and atmospheres that respond to your growth or your stagnation. The moment you shift internally, the world around you begins to adjust externally. Some things will rise with you, some things will resist you, and some things will fall away. But nothing remains unaffected. Your change alters the tone of the room before you say a word. When your mindset elevates, your standards rise, and what you once tolerated becomes uncomfortable. Conversations shift, boundaries form. Access becomes selective. People who benefited from the old version of you may struggle with the new one, not because you are wrong, but because growth disrupts familiarity. Change forces everything connected to you to reveal whether it was aligned or merely attached. Your family feels your transformation first. When you respond instead of react, when you choose discipline over impulse, when you walk in clarity instead of confusion, the atmosphere changes. Cycles that ran unchallenged for years begin to weaken because someone finally decided to be different. One person's growth can interrupt generations of dysfunction. When you change, you give permission for others to believe that change is possible too. Your finances respond to your change. When your thinking matures, your decisions sharpen. You become intentional instead of emotional. You stop chasing quick relief and start building long-term stability. Money follows patterns, and when your patterns shift, so do your outcomes. Provision is often connected not to how hard you work, but to how wisely you move. Your opportunities change when you do. As your confidence grows, you recognize doors you used to overlook. As your discipline increases, you're prepared for moments you once would have fumbled. As your self-respect deepens, you stop settling for spaces that shrink you. The world tends to make room for people who know who they are and move accordingly. Not everything connected to you will survive your growth, and that is one of the hardest truths to accept. Some relationships were only sustainable at a lower level of awareness. Some environments only felt comfortable when you were silent, small, or unsure. When you change, misalignment becomes obvious. Loss in these moments is not punishment, it is pruning. What leaves makes room for what fits who you are becoming. Your change creates momentum beyond you. Your discipline inspires. Your consistency challenges. Your courage confronts excuses in others. Even without trying, your life becomes a message. People may not say it out loud, but they feel the difference. Change has a ripple effect. It touches children watching, peers observing, and communities impacted by your example. When you change, you don't just upgrade your life, you shift your legacy. You redefine what is possible for everyone connected to you. That is why change matters so deeply. It's never just about you. It's about what your growth unlocks in the world around you and the future that adjusts itself to meet the new you. Hear me clearly as I take this mic and drive this truth home. Stop waiting on the calendar, the crowd, or the conditions. The breakthrough you're praying for is standing on the other side of your decision. If nothing has changed, it's not because heaven is silent, it's because transformation is still pending inside you. Today, the excuses end, the delays break, and the mirror gets answered. Say it with authority, say it with ownership, say it like your future depends on it. Nothing changes until I change. And starting now, I do